So, hello, my name is Pui Leung. So I'm a software engineer for the Office Interoperability team for Microsoft. So my team is responsible for developing tools like test tools, publishing MSDN protocol documents, and also hosting events. So we have an event coming up in June that you guys might be interested to go. So in this presentation, I will talk about the test tools. In particular, two types of test tools that we have. One is the protocol test suite. The other one is the MailSim. So for protocol test suite, it's been around for a while. So I'll have a short introduction what that is, and I'll spend majority of time talking about the MailSim. So protocol test suite scenarios, so implemented scenarios. So we see that there are three kind of scenarios how people integrate or interop with Office, right? So one is with customers building, or actually partners building clients that extends and replace the Microsoft client, like replacing Office or doing other stuff. And then we see the man-in-the-middle solution where they will actually build like a device or something to sit in the middle of the on the network, or they will do a server replacement, like replacing SharePoint or Exchange, right? So what the test suite does is it allows you to test two scenarios. One is basically the man in the middle, and the other one is a server replacement. It doesn't do anything on the client side because it simulates the traffic from the client side. So it it doesn't do anything with the client, but allows you to test both man in the middle and the server scenarios. So a quick overview of the development process. So basically, the document is developed by the product team. So when the product team actually write the application, they actually document what the interface does and what the properties are, and all the information. And once the document is finished, we will then have a separate team to look at the document and start simulating the traffic using the information from the document to a Microsoft server, right? So like when the SharePoint team is developing, the product, we will then follow the protocol and simulate traffic using the information from the document. We then actually deploy the test suite to test the servers internally. And once we finish that and we go through testing, we would make it available, and we work with third-party, customers to actually improve the quality and collect feedback, right? So what we did in reality is when we once we get the document, we will then review all the information in the document, make sure it's clear, it's understandable, right? And at the same time, we extract the requirements from there. So there are requirements like must, may, and should, right? So we will look at all those keywords and look at the behavior and determine what can be tested and what cannot be tested, right? So once we collect all the requirements and we did an analysis on them, we will then develop the test case and build the test suite for do the test suite development, right? So what the test suite is basically a number of test cases. Test case is basically just a logical group of all the requirements. So let's say when you have a connection, after the connection you create a document, then you check out the documents. So those interactions can be grouped into one test case. But it is nothing more than just a logical group of them, all the requirements. The test case then drive what we call like adapters. So we have a protocol adapters, we have a SUT adapters. Protocol adapters are basically the infrastructure for sending and receiving the protocol. So it is written in C#, and it's very less likely for you to modify because it's basically just handling the protocol itself, right? And the test case will drive the SUT control adapter that basically handles all the setup work, all the cleanup work, everything outside of the protocol itself. So let's say, in order for you to do a checkout of a file, right, you need to have a file in the environment. So the SUT control adapter will then, first create a file, or it will register a file or check in a file, or do all the preparation work that require for the test case to run. It will then, the protocol adapter then send the traffic to the server and get a result and process and make sure the response is actually what we expected. So kind of like an example, like talking about like doing the versioning, right? So in Microsoft Word, when you check out the file, when you do saving a file, checking in the file, right? It actually uses the get version interface to actually do the MS Word protocol to handle the versioning, right? But in our test suite, when we read the document, we see the same the same protocol and the same operation. So we'll have a test suite actually to carry out the same operation. But the test suite focuses more on the protocol itself. It doesn't simulate what Word does. It doesn't simulate it doesn't really care about what Word and Excel and other the application does, right? It's strictly just looking at the protocol documentation and testing the information within the documentation. So that's what it does. So like I mentioned before, so we have test cases that actually is a group of requirements that we actually carry out and validate, right? So we have a protocol adapter, and then so it's handling the protocol message and also validating the response. And then we have the SUT control adapter that can be in PowerShell, it can be in C#. The last part is more interesting, is the interactive adapters. So we provide all the scripts for Windows environment, right? So we provide all the scripts for Exchange, for SharePoint, so it can do it automatically. But if you have, like OpenChange or other third-party server, right, that you cannot run PowerShell script, you can then change the SUT adapter into like an interactive mode. So what that does is, every time it needs to do something, it will give you a prompt and ask you to, hey, check in a file, or do something that the SUT adapter needs to do. So that will allows you to test a third-party server outside of the Microsoft stack. The test suite is actually it is developed in Visual Studio. So you will still need a Windows environment to actually run it. So a quick summary of what we did. So last December, January-ish, so we published all the new version of the test suite. So we have a new SharePoint test suite with about 7 new protocols added to it. And also we ramp up all the test suite to Visual Studio 2013 and supporting like Exchange SP1 and SharePoint SP3, I think, something like that. Yeah. So we made an update, about a few months ago. So SharePoint, the bolder one is hard to see, but are the new protocols that we are now supporting. And then we have the new WAPI and FSS HTTP test suite available now. We didn't change or add anything to like EWS and EAS, but basically we just ran it up to make sure to work with Visual Studio 2013. So and then EAS also. There's probably like minor bug fixes in it though. And we also introduced the MAPIHTTP protocol test suite. So it is a replacement of the previous RPC test suite. So we added the new MAPIHTTP protocol to it. So again, all those test suites are available today. So you can just go to Connect Microsoft to download them. So the test environment. So for SharePoint, we in the test suite allows you to specify the version of the server version that you are testing against. So we support 07, 2010, and 2013. So for both Exchange and SharePoint. So if your server implementation is is close to 2010, you can change the test suite to only execute the operations that are supported in that particular version, right? So on the client side, we need Windows and the Visual Studio and then protocol test framework to actually run the test suite. And optionally, you can do message analyzer or netmon, and to kind of monitor the traffic, right? So to run the test suite, I've got people asking me how to run it. So basically, you can run it in Visual Studio. It's very simple, right? You open the test suite, you get the VSMDI file to get all the test cases. After that, you just select the test case you are interested and just run it. We also provide a number of batch files to run it outside of Visual Studio, right? But the underneath script actually uses the MS test executable to run it. So even though you can run the test script without Visual Studio, you still need the binary, the MS test binary to run the test cases. So we provide a script to run all the tests in the whole package, in all the protocols. And then, you can run all the test case within a specific protocol, or you can just run a specific test case itself. But all those, batch files, all those scripts, basically drive the MS test executable. So you can also write your own scripts to actually run the test cases. So I kind of fly through the test suite because it's been around for a while. So I will then talk about the more interesting MailSim. So MailSim, this is actually the first time we talk about it in public, right? And the tool will be available about a month from now. We just code complete about a week ago. So this is the first time we're talking about it. First time we're showing demo, on it. So what it is basically a command line tool that automates Outlook in Windows, unfortunately, right? So it requires Windows, and it's just an automation tool that sit on top of it. What it does, it allows us to generate real, actual Outlook traffic, and allows us to run in like a multiple user environment for an extended period of time. So you can run it, in weeks, hours, days, right? So it automates Outlook mail operations. So right now we support folder and mail operations, and that's what we started with. So to drive the automation, we have a couple XML file that we define that allows you to specify the number of iteration, the duration, if there's any sleep on it, and to scale it to number of users, right? So why are we doing that? So basically, we've heard a lot of requests about doing real life traffic, right? I mean, so we have the protocol test suite today that allows to simulate the traffic on the wire at the protocol documentation level, right? But a lot of customers are actually interested in actual traffic and being able to automate and simulate certain type of operation, right? And so we've heard a lot of requests about that, and there's nothing on the market today, and nothing out there today that actually does the same thing. So Microsoft we think is a good idea to actually build a tool that allows people to actually do that, to simulate automation for it, right? And another important thing is that this tool we will be doing open source. So we will make the source available, possibly on GitHub or somewhere, and make it and have other people to actually contribute to it. So this is going to be an open source tool. So some design principles, right? So we want to have, we want to be able to allow multiple clients running at the same time for a long period of time. So you can simulate, 50 clients running, mail operation consistently, at a certain scale for a long period of time. But we build on top of Outlook, so there are all, there are the Outlook requirement that you can only have one Outlook instance running, and so each client needs to have an Outlook. 2013 in this case, we've developed the tool using the Outlook object model against 2013. We don't expect a lot of changes between 2010, maybe 2007 too, but we have not done any testing on it, right? So far, so that's what we've built the tool with. There might be changes, but we don't anticipate like huge change. But we have not done any testing on other versions of Outlook. So again, so we use the Outlook object model to basically to communicate with Outlook, and I will talk about the operation and sequence files in a little bit. There's more detail about it. And we are also monitoring the events that comes in. So the tool allows you to monitor, a specific folder if you want to, like if you want to monitor the send folder or delete folder or the junk folder. So there's an operation that allows you to monitor the folder. I'll show it in the demo in a little bit. So right now, let's say if you have, like 5 clients running the tool at the same time, they don't really talk to, there's no communication between the clients, right, on the mail sim. So they basically just look at the directory, what the people are in the directory, and send email and do all the operations. So they don't so you can have multiple instances running on multiple machines at the same time, but they don't communicate with each other, right? So that's, so some high-level architecture of the tool. So basically on the top left side, so we have the sequence and the operation files that drive the tool. Is the main kind of define the profile that allows you to specify what to do with the tool. Then we have a sequence execution engine that process the file, validate the schema, and actually carry out the operation. Then on the bottom, we basically dump it to the screen output, and at the same time, we pump it to a XML log file. And you can specify a network location for the log file if you want to. The execution engine then uses the Outlook object model connector to communicate with Outlook, and Outlook communicates with whatever mail server that you have. So you can connect to O365, Exchange, or any other servers. So this is a very important information about sequence and operation. So the sequence file allows you to define the flow of the operation, right? So the sequence file, you can basically define, you want to send email, you want to delete email, you want to move folder, you want to create folder, right? Within the sequence file, it's like the top right one. So you specify the operation, and then maybe a sleep time and iteration, and you can have multiple groups running, right? So you can have one group doing send mail, one group doing folders. But what it does is it then actually points to the operation file. And the operation file is the one that specifies the actual operation. So you can reuse the operation multiple times and in multiple profile, right? That's the whole purpose of splitting them into two configuration files. So in the operation files, you can specify, you then actually specify the corresponding operation. So let's say you do a mail send to 5 random recipients. Then in the operation file, you have the same operation name, and then specifying the detail of it. So like who the recipient should be, and whether there's an attachment, subject, body, stuff like that, right? And yeah, so that's what they are. So I'll show you some sample in my demo. So right now, so MailSim supports about 8 operations. So we do mail operation, like sending mail, deleting mail, reply, forward, move, and then we do folder create and folder delete, right? And then the last one is event monitoring. So these are what we've heard from partners. what they are interested to do. So definitely, give us feedback, give us, ideas, what you guys like to do. And again, this is like an open source tool, right? So, so you can also extend and develop on it. So that's, so these are the operations that correspond to the file. So that's about it for the talk. But so I'll show you a demo actually how it works. All right. So first I'll open the. So I'll show you, kind of walk you through quickly on the schema, right? So we have the actual schema. So we have the actual schema with some comments about what each field does and what they do, right? But it's easier to show like a design like that. So for the mail sequence, you can specify the log file location. We've seen some issues when you're running on maybe some environment issue, but allowing you. But we sometimes see like a prompt from Outlook for access permission. So we have some method in there or parameter in there to allow you to turn off the Outlook prompt if necessary, right? And then so you then define as group. You can have one to multiple groups. Within each group, you define the name of the group, and you define operation where the operation file is, and then you specify number of iteration and number how much second to sleep after the group is run. Then you define the task. And you can have one or multiple tasks. And within the task, you specify the name, the iteration, and the amount of sleep that you want to do. In theory, right? In theory, we can run the program like really quick, right? But sometimes you want to put a break. Let's say if you want to create folder, what I see is, well, you cannot have the same folder name multiple times. So I usually put 1 second or 2 second delay in it so that we will actually. The program will run a little bit slower and create the folder a little bit slower. So that's what the mail sequence file looks like, right? So I can show you a quick on the right side like a mail. So let's say like a delete sequence, right? So it's pretty simple. Can you see? Yeah. See. Yeah. So it's like like in this case, I'll do a demo run delete, and then that's where the operation file is, and then I want to run this task and sleep for 5 seconds. So the sequence file is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So the operation file is a little bit more complicated. I think you can see. Make it bigger. Okay. So in the mail, the operation file, the 8 operations are defined. For each operation, we define, like the operation name that correspond to the kind of like a reference, and then the sleep. And we allow you to define a specific recipient, or you can do random recipient, right? So you can send an email. You can have the tool to send an email to Michael Bowman at Microsoft.com, or you can just query the directory and pick random people off the directory. We also allow you to specify a distribution list. So you can create a distribution list for testing, and we only randomize the recipient from the distribution list. And then we have some optional subject. You can specify optional body, optional attachment. And same for attachment. You can do a specific attachment. You can have 0 to I don't know whatever max number of attachment Outlook supports, or you can do random attachment and specify a folder location where we just randomly pick files from there, right? So same for the other one, like mail delete, mail forward. It's kind of straightforward. For folder create, basically you just specify where you want to create the folder and the folder name, and we will then use like append like a time to the folder we create, so we can differentiate between the folder, right? And also for subject and body too, we will put a timestamp on it. And then for delete folder, we just the same. You specify the path and optional folder name to delete. event monitoring basically just allows you to specify which folder to monitor, like inbox, delete, send. So that's the schema. And the actual schema, we have a lot of comments in there, try to explain what each field does, right? Excuse me. Okay, so then let me show you the actual operation file. So in this case, in my demo, right? So I have an event monitor that monitors the inbox. So what I did is I grouped all the operations in one file, and then I have multiple scripts to point to the same file and carry out a specific operation, right? So I can send an email to Andrew with just specific recipient. Yep. And then I can send it to a Pui with 2 specific attachment, and then with a specific body. And then I'll do a random attachment, so specify a random recipient from this mailing list, and I specify like 5 recipient, and I specify 5 random attachment from this folder, right? So what the tool actually does is, let me show you multiple things, kind of make it interesting. So this, so what I've set up is I have a Outlook set up to Office 365. So this Outlook actually points to Office 365. And this is pretty much the same account, right? So I have a script that just monitor the inbox for about like 10 minutes. So I will then kick it up to monitor. So this script, this on the bottom one, this will actually just sit there and monitor the folder, waiting for events, right? Waiting for events on the inbox to happen. So right now it's connected to Outlook and just waiting for things to happen. On this side, I will then just run the send, the send sequence. So what the send sequence does is it will. So the first group is to send an email to Andrew, then send an email with 2 attachments, and then it will do random 5 recipient and random recipient, right? So I'll do this. I should show. So you can see on the same folder. So I'm sending email, right? On this side. So I'll show the inbox. Where's my monitor? So you can see, as I receive, the notification actually goes on the second monitor. So as I receive email, right? So then I'm getting a new event, and then I'm sending out email, and this is actually happening on O365 on the fly. I mean, in real time right now. So you can then see, I attach 5 files and send it to these 5 recipient with these body. So then we basically carry out all the 4 operation. Once the tool finish, and then sleeping, and then email. So let me show you. So at the end of the run, basically it pumps all the screen output also, right, to an XML file, so you can actually look at it and find out what exactly the tool does. One thing is that when you do randomized attachment and randomized recipient, right, so you cannot really rerun you will not be able to reproduce the same exact operation because the recipient will be changed and the attachment will be changed, right? But if you want to replay the same scenario over and over again, then you should do specific recipient. So this is that. And then another interesting thing I'll do is like do folders. Mail theme. So to create, I'm gonna create like 5 folders. So I'll show you quickly. So the folder create. So in this case, I'm just gonna create, do a folder create to the inbox, and I think so And then in the operation, I specify to do like folder create, like I'll do to the inbox with Pui test, and then do a five iteration with 3 second sleep in between. So then what it will do is, so I'll run this. So you'll then see the folder start popping up on Outlook, right? And then you should be able to see it on this guy too. So folders popping up. Folders actually popping on the server pretty quickly, right? Yep. So I've just created 5 folders, right? And then I can also delete them. So I can also delete, delete the folder, and so then they are moving from the inbox to delete, and then I can also delete the folder from the delete folder, right? So pretty much, pretty much you can do. So right now, again, we only focuses on the mail and folders right now. We don't touch calendar, we don't touch contacts, we don't do other stuff. So yeah, so this one delete like 3 folders. So you can see even on, Office 365 is pretty quick. The folders got deleted. So this, yeah. So this is what it does. Interesting. Any question? I have more demo script to move emails to the junk folder and forward reply. Pretty much, yeah. So we pretty much expose what you can do in the UI, right? Yep. So yeah, so I actually like moving. I like moving email to junk folder. It's kind of nice. Move. So then it will just like move this email to a junk folder. So now I have a junk mail. So yeah. So that's what the tool does. Any question? Yes. About a month from now. So targeting like about June 15. We'll have a Plugfest on June 22nd, right? So it will be available a week before the Plugfest. So as we speak, we have a team doing testing. We're doing developing the documentation and everything for it right now. So, yep.
Okay, this is very nice. I see a lot of potential for automating tasks, but for testing, for example, for checking regressions, if we want to integrate this on a continuous integration system like Jenkins, do we have any way to put assertions to check stuff like, okay, we've received the mail with this subject or?
Yes. So that's why we actually right now we pump everything, all the operation and everything we monitor to the log file, right? So in here, so what do you call? In here, okay. So in here, so like I ran like 4 operations, right? So you can then, I don't know what this is. You can then kind of see, so all the stuff are actually logged into XML. By default, it logs to the local directory. You can specify a network location. It will pump it to wherever you want it to.
Yeah, so basically to integrate with other tool, we just transfer that XML in other.
Okay. Yes. Nice. So right now we just dump all the text in there. We can probably do better and dump objects and deserialize stuff to it and make it more easier to pass and automatic to have scripts to actually process it. But right now we have just dump all the operations, and we are going to provide the source code so you can easily modify and extend it to whichever you like.
Yeah, I have another question about the things that are not implemented like calendars and. How many effort do you think it will require to implement that? I mean,
so the Outlook object model is actually not that hard, right? So if you look at the source code of the mail sim, a majority of the source code we build a wrapper around it. around the operations we do, and then we have an engine. So we spend a lot of time mostly on the engine side, processing all the operation. Let's see this. Yeah, so the source code is actually very simple, and Outlook object model is pretty easy to use. It's pretty well documented. So I don't think it's actually that bad to do it, and this is like a framework that you can build on top of it. So that's the whole purpose of doing this, right? I don't think it's hard to quantify, right? I don't know. Maybe it's hard for me, maybe easy for you, right? So it's very hard to quantify.
Probably it's the opposite.
Yeah, so it might be very hard for me. But
you have all the knowledge, but I was asking for you, because then with the estimation we just multiply that by a lot, and
maybe a fraction of it. I don't think it's actually it should be pretty straightforward. I think it's very straightforward. And the object model exposes a lot of operations that you can do. So it's actually, I think it's pretty straightforward. It's just basically looking at what you need to do and how to do it, right? The actual call, let's say, to send an email is pretty easy, right? You open a connection to Outlook, and then you create an object for mail object, and then you just save the properties, like recipient, attachment, subject, body, and then send. That's pretty much it,
okay,
right?
thanks.
So it's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
With calendaring, you also need to be careful to define operations that you want to do, and to do randomization as well. That you will need. So you will need to spend some, or we will need to spend some time just designing it carefully. And I also want to point out on logging. The idea, we are thinking about two versions, like version 1 now, to see if there is interest. And then if there is interest, version 2, which is probably going to be joint development in some kind. And in that version, what we envision is to have centralized log, all clients log into central log. And then it would be possible to build a tool that will parse this log and verify that everything which was expected to be happen actually happened.
Yeah, because we think it's going to be very useful because, like, if you take, like, because we also monitor the time, right? So, like, when I sent an email out last time, right, when I ran the demo, right? So you can also see, I can actually show you quickly. It's kind of interesting thing to understand is, like, when I do the send, right? So I do a send mail to myself somewhere. Okay. I send an email to myself. Hold on. So I sent an email to myself 3:30 a.m. right? 3:30 minute and then 30 second, right? And then I actually received an event at 3:41, right? So it's kind of interesting. Also, an interesting thing to understand when I actually carry out an operation. When I drive Outlook to send an email to myself, what is the turnaround time to come back to me again, right? So in this case, about 11 seconds, right? Before we send an email, the server get it, process the request, actually send an email to my account, and then my account actually, go back to Outlook, right? So the whole trip around time is actually 11 seconds, and this is off Office 365, right? So it's kind of interesting. So what Andrew, along with what Andrew said, so with these information, you can kind of coordinate or kind of correlate all these stuff together. And if you have multiple clients running at the same time, you can then grab their log file and kind of process kind of what happened and stuff like that. So it's kind of very interesting, yeah.
If some operation fails, what will be the answer? I mean, if you send, for example, to a mail to an account that doesn't exist, can you check anywhere that the operation failed, or you always suppose that the operation is gonna be okay?
So if you specify like someone not available, right? So then what happens is when we when we commit the operation to Outlook, Outlook will then send us an error, right? So then we will report the error back to here. So I can, if you want, I can do it quickly. But basically, it will then error out, and so I can create like a, hold on. Oops. So I can create like a, so let's say, so I can do a send, do a copy of it. So test, right? And then test, I can just modify to delete these, and then send to Andrew, right? So let me modify this. This one right now only have send to Andrew, right?
All right.
Save it. So then I can go to the operation file and then find send to Andrew to I don't know, Sarah goes, sorry, test, right? Okay. So I saved those two, actually. So I saved those two, right? So then when I run the mail sim test, right? So it will then mail send to Andrew, process task, subject body, recipient test, right? So what happens is actually Outlook will send it to the user.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't actually, the send operation actually is successful because we are able to send the email, right? And then Outlook will probably come back saying that, hey, the person doesn't exist,
Yeah.
right?
But can you check that
The status.
event in some place, or?
I think probably the only thing is you monitor the inbox and check for the, so.
But maybe you are not checking your own inbox.
Yeah, so let's see how long it does take for it to recognize a fail. So send. So like, I don't think we have a test user. Do we have a test user? Oh, we do. Oh, so it's actually a successful. Sorry. All right, I should pick something else. Yeah. So okay. We don't have real use. We don't have real. Okay. ABCD. Okay. All right. So I didn't realize that. Okay. So yeah, so in this case, when I send the email, well, first of all, a couple of things, right? Because if you don't specify the I forgot what's that called, the like test@a.com, right? It will then resolve it within the directory, right? If you specify, if you specify in my case ABC, it will try to go to the directory and resolve the name. So when Outlook send the email, it will then recognize, hey, the email, the user doesn't exist. But if I specify the user as ab@cd.com, Outlook will then try to send the email, right? So there are two scenarios. You understand my scenarios? So there are two scenarios, right? So in this case, because I specify ABCD, and then because the user doesn't exist, so it will come back saying Outlook does not recognize one or more names in this case, right? But if I send it to abc.cde.com, Outlook will then send the email. Yeah.
But you won't receive the.
Then you won't receive, except you will receive the undelivered or something, right? So I do abc.efg.com, right? And you run that, right?
Okay,
so in this case, the send is actually successful.
Okay.
Then we will see. Where's my mouse? We will see. We'll expect. Then we expect like a undelivery, right? In this case.
But you have to check through Outlook. You can check in a log or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. Yep. So in this case, it actually sent to that address, right? So it will probably take a while for Outlook to recognize it's undeliverable.
Okay.
Thank you. Cool. All right. So yeah. So I mean, I will be in the lab. So you feel free to come over and chat with us and ask us more questions if you have. So all right. Thank you.